All right, welcome everybody to the January Plan Commission meeting for the town of Fortville. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:30 PM. If everybody would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Yes. All right, everybody's got their microphones on. Alex, you can hear us on the mics? Perfect, thank you. All right, Andy, can you please take us through roll call?
Yes, sir. Mike Siebert.
Here.
That is Jason Stein. Amanda Jeschke.
Here.
Nathan Sturdevant.
Here.
Brittany Layton.
Here.
Dan Justice. Robert Holland.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Andy. Again, welcome to this month's Plan Commission meeting. We will move, I would like to look for a motion to approve the meeting agenda for this evening's meeting.
We need to make one update to the agenda.
Yes. And that is that we need to add Robert Holland to the new member list, correct? Okay.
Yep, sorry about that. We got his oath of office typed up, but forgot to get it on the agenda there. So
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting agenda with the addition of adding Robert Holland to administering the oath of office.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Apologize. All right. Agenda
Before we-
approved. Next, we will move to
Jump in there.
section in the meeting for 2024. The Plan Commission needs to select a president and vice president for 2024. We'll start with president. And with that, do I have any nominations?
Nathan Sturdivant for president.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next, we'll move to vice president for 2024. Do I have any nominations?
I nominate Amanda for vice president.
All right. Do I have a second? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Amanda Jeschke is the vice president for the year. All right. Next, I would look for a member of the commission. First, has everybody read the meeting minutes? Are there any adjustments required?
I don't think so.
Right. If not, I'd look for a motion to approve the meeting minutes for December 26, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve meeting minutes as presented for December 26th.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Then it's approved. All right. Item 6 on our agenda this evening, to the amended section. Andy, will you please administer the oath of office? We'll start first with Mike Siebert, and then we will move to Robert Holland.
So before we get in there,
Yes.
Andy, are you a deputy clerk of the clerk treasurer?
I am not.
So.
he's a notary though.
Oh, you are? You're a notary?
I am a notary, yes.
Okay, good. You can administer oaths then. I just wanted to make sure. We've had this issue before, so.
Yes, I was gonna say, well, I thought we discussed this before.
All right, carry on. Just wanted to make sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Pull in my pocket.
All right, raise your right hand. I, Mike Siebert,
I, Mike Siebert,
Plan Commission appointee of the Town Council,
a Plan Commission appointee of the Town Council,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully perform
that I will faithfully perform
the duties of my appointed office
the duties of my appointed office
and will support,
and will support
and honor to the best of my ability
and honor to the best of my ability
all applicable laws
all applicable laws
of the state of Indiana and the town of Fortville,
of the state of Indiana and the town of Fortville,
as well as
the
the governing rules,
governing rules,
policies,
policies,
and procedures of the commission.
and procedures of the commission.
I hereby affirm that I will perform the duties of this public trust
I do affirm that I will perform the duties of this public trust
in a fair,
in a fair,
equitable,
equitable,
and ethical manner
and ethical manner
according to law.
according to law.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. I, Robert Holland, a Planning Commission appointee of the Town Council, do solemnly swear that I faithfully perform the duties of my appointed office and will support and honor to the best of my ability all applicable laws of the state of Indiana, town of Fortville, as well as the governing rules, policies, and procedures of the commission. I hereby affirm that I will perform the duties of this public trust in a fair, equitable, and ethical manner according to the law. So help me God. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. All right, moving to item 7, commission to consider nominating Amanda Jeschke to the Plan Commission's appointment to the Board of Zoning Appeal. Adam, can you give the commission a little context here, just so we're aware of kind of the reason for the consideration?
Sure.
before we vote?
So, under Indiana law, all advisory boards of zoning appeals across the state have to have a certain makeup of different individuals on the board. It's the same with also with the Plan Commission, of course, there are different criteria. So for the Board of Zoning Appeals, one of the members needs that the Plan Commission actually gets an appointment to that body. I don't recall offhand who the appointment was previously, but in order to have different individuals on the board to properly be seated for each of the different seats and appointments, Brittany was moved to, if you're agreeable to it, of course, to a Plan Commission appointment as opposed to, I think before she was a citizen member.
Okay.
So that's really, I guess it was a long answer to a short question, as it's based on state law and who makes appointments and what their minimum qualifications need to be. Because lastly, some members are allowed to serve on other boards and some are not, depending on what seat they are in. So, any
Okay.
questions?
Any questions for Adam on that?
Yes, actually. Because I know it's seat shuffling, right? So Nathan was the last appointee from this board to BZA. Because I got it written down here. It says
Okay.
from Plan Commission to BZA.
Mhm.
But he will still remain on BZA, correct?
Right.
Okay,
Right. And he, I don't have that sheet in front of me, but if I recall, Nathan's seat now is, he was appointed by the council, and by virtue of him
okay.
being on this board, he is qualified to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay.
So it's
we
just a
didn't
different,
wanna
it's just
lose
a
him.
difference of the appointing body.
I just didn't want to lose him on BZA.
No,
Okay.
he's still on it, thankfully.
Okay. All right, all right. I
Does
have
make
no other
sense.
questions. It's just confusing.
It is confusing.
All right, so I assume we need to make a motion.
Correct.
Okay, So do I have a motion to nominate Amanda Jeschke as the Plan Commission's appointment to the Board of Zoning Appeals?
I will make a motion to appoint or to nominate Amanda Jeschke as the Plan Commission's appointment to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, congratulations.
Yay.
Yeah.
Give me that.
I have to keep everything. I keep track of it.
Sure. Absolutely. All right. Moving on to new business for the evening. We will move to new business public hearing, case number RZ 04-2023, 9737 North Fortville Pike, the Marmion property rezone. Apologize if I mispronounced that. To review and consider issuing a positive recommendation to the town council regarding ordinance number 2023-12B, a petition from Clay Marmion to rezone property from residential 3.5 R 3.5 to residential rural at 9737 North Fortville Pike. Adam, will you walk us through the presentation, please? That presentation?
All right. For some reason it wants to go into a different window, so keep it like this for the time being. All right, so for this particular case, this is at 9737 North Fortville Pike. The petitioner and the owner of the property is Clay Marmion. The zoning on the property today is residential 3.5. And the property is being used as a single family residence or a rural estate. And it's about 6.6 acres in size. So the request before you tonight is Mr. Marmion would like to possibly have a horse or horses on his property. He also wants to have a metal pole barn on the property. But for that item, a use variance was already granted by the BZA back in December. And he feels that the property is better zoned as residential rural RR and is seeking to change the zoning from residential 3.5. So this would be a downgrade in zoning intensity. And it should be noted that grazing and pasture land and livestock raising and breeding are permitted uses in the residential rural zoning district and not in R 3.5. If we take a look at the parcel map, you can see the property in question. There's technically two parcels. There's a smaller one that's out near Fortville Pike, and then the larger main property is off to the east. And if we zoom in, this is an oblique aerial that was taken last year, and you can see the newer home that was built on the eastern portion of the lot. And then there's an existing barn that's out along the western portion. All right, so if we take a look at the current zoning map, you can see that the property again is R 3.5 off to the east. That's all in unincorporated Hancock County. It's zone residential 1.0. And then over to the west, there's some R 3.5 land as well. And just for reference, here was an example of the pole barn that he would like to build that the BZA already granted, but at least you can get a sense of what he's looking to put onto the property. In terms of the town council comments, the first reading or the introductory reading of this rezone ordinance occurred back on December 18th. Of last year, and the council appeared to be supportive of the request. They asked how this would impact the South Madison Boulevard plans. I'll show you some maps here momentarily, but simply put, the plans for the future right-of-way were taken into account when the home was built, and it's well outside of the future right-of-way. In terms of the community response, all the public hearing requirements have been met. That included a sign posting by town staff, included a mailing to nearby property owners. which was done by the petitioner, and it included a newspaper publication in the Greenfield Reporter, and there's no known remonstrance. So if you recall, for all of the rezones that are before you by Indiana code, you're asked to at least consider the following items. So first one is it consistent with the comprehensive plan? The answer is no. The Town of Fortville Future Growth Concept Map from 2016 identified this area as industrial. And then the 2017 South Madison TIF District Master Plan identified this area as open space. However, Mr. Marmion purchased the property in 2020 and utilized the existing residential zoning R3.5 to build his house, which also could have been allowed in rural residential as well. And if we take a look at the comprehensive plan map here, again, this is in the process of being updated, but as of today, this is still our comprehensive plan map. You can see the area in blue is industrial. And then if we take a look at the South Madison TIF District Master Plan, which in some ways is a modified comprehensive plan specific to the geography of the TIF district, you can see here that this parcel was shown as open space, flanked by light industrial to the north and to the south. Second item is, would this rezone be consistent with the current conditions and the character of the current structures? And the answer is yes. There's a mismatch between the zoning of R3.5, which is really intended for more suburban or urban uses, and the use of the property, which is more rural in nature. Third item is this consistent with the most desirable use of the land? I'd say yes. This rural property is privately owned and a home was built on the property. Fourth one is this consistent with the conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction? I'd say yes. This is a petitioner request for rezone of a particular property and would have no negative impact on property values elsewhere in town because it simply aligns the zoning with the use of the property. And number 5, is this consistent with responsible growth and development? I'd say yes. Again, it's really the same response as with the previous evaluation item number 4. So with that, staff recommendation, I'd recommend that the Plan Commission grant a favorable recommendation to the Town Council of the rezone. And Mr. Marmion is on the Zoom call. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to address those. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions for Adam before we move on to the petitioner?
I do. Does Fortville have any RR zoned properties within it elsewhere?
Yes, it's some. It's not used that often. We do have one property that was recently rezoned to RR within the last year or two. That's at 9168 North 200 West. It's on the west side of 200 West.
So surrounded by farmland,
Yes.
not surrounded by housing and
Correct. In that circumstance.
residential
Well, let me,
businesses.
I should clarify. There are some houses that front on a 200 West that
Mhm.
are in the county. But they're obviously,
We're talking about a very rural. part of-
that's a rural part of town, right?
Okay. We don't
Uh,
have any RR in the vicinity of where this property is.
No, we
Okay.
do not.
So just so I'm clear, all of the properties that surround this particular, that's in town of Fortville is 2.5 or 3.5?
Correct.
So what it says R 1.0 is all county?
Correct.
Okay, so there is no RR within the vicinity of this property.
Correct.
Okay. Does the town of Fortville allow farm animals within the town limits? Like chickens, goats?
We do.
Okay.
Better give you the simplest answer as possible.
Put up a chicken coop in my backyard and my HOA said it was okay. I could do that.
So for chickens, for horses, for other farm animals, the town code has a regulation that predated our zoning ordinance that we use today.
Okay.
And it basically says that I think in any zoning district, at least this is what it's still technically on the books, is that the council can review that. There's no plan commission involvement and they can say yay or nay. And there have been a few cases sporadically over the years where people have requested that and it's been granted. However, the zoning ordinance, which took effect in 2020, I would say probably clarifies that a little bit more in that farm animals like horses are specifically called out in the zoning ordinance as being allowed in this zoning district, regardless of council approval. But in this case,
Horses, for clarification, horses are allowed in 3.5?
no, they're not allowed in 3.5.
Okay.
So
So then farm animals aren't really allowed in town without,
farm animals are allowed if the council approves it.
Okay.
And it also can't run afoul of the zoning ordinance either. So for example, if somebody wanted to have a horse and it
Mhm.
was on property zoned R3.5, the zoning ordinance would prohibit that.
okay,
Even though the old town code says that council just has to say it's fine.
okay,
So in this case, council is acting, they would still have to approve the rezone ordinance and they have full disclosure that horses would be allowed on this property. It's allowed in the zoning district. So it's really, it accomplishes the same objective of legalizing, allowing farm animals on the property.
So with the comprehensive plan, all the properties surrounding this are anticipated to be either industrial or residential. Is that correct? Like we're
Yes.
looking at future growth here. So we're not anticipating this area to be rural at all. We are moving towards the future of industrial and residential growth. We're not looking back, we're looking forward. That's correct?
Correct.
Okay, so,
So this, to be clear, the comprehensive plan, including this TIF district master plan, is only a plan, only a comprehensive plan. And so there's no zoning that's associated with
Sure.
it at this time. So,
the zoning, just looking at the
right. But to
usages
answer
that
your,
are proposed for the future of this land.
yes, but to answer your question, yes, that is true.
Individuals can come in and purchase land and change it to whatever use that they specifically want, but
Right,
they can't affect what's going on around them.
right.
So although
Okay.
he has chosen to make his homestead here, Walmart could come in and build an industrial factory, or Thursday Pools could come in and put a storage
Right.
right next to his house.
Right.
I guess this might be a question for him, but I wanted to ask it of you. I assume that we have codes in place to mitigate the smells, the sounds of livestock, so that they don't negatively impact surrounding properties. I mean, how do you mitigate the pollution that is produced, such as manure? I've been around horses and I know that they produce a significant amount, and that it can be an environmental impact.
Yeah, offhand, I'm not, it's a good question, comment. Offhand, I'm not familiar with any particular
Just with that being so close to
ordinances that
residential.
would, yeah, I'm not aware of any particular ordinances that would deal with those issues. Not to say there aren't any, I'm just not intimately aware of them.
My concern is that we say that there's no negative impacts to properties around it, but you know, if that situation were to get out of hand, pollution, noises from livestock, et cetera, could negatively impact the value of properties around it. People may have a hard time selling their land if some, yeah,
Right.
just,
If there was a nuisance, sure.
yeah, just
Mhm.
those were my questions. Thank you.
I have a few. I'm going to just roll through real quick. How many acres is this piece of property? Do we know?
6.6.
Okay. Back on the previous map, I don't know, it had all the different colored zoning on it, the one that's actually in place right now, not, no, the next one. There's
Oh,
another
the
one.
zoning.
Yeah. So you referred to, so there's some light yellow, that's also county R1.0.
Correct.
Okay, so that means that's under the jurisdiction of the county, that's not Fortville?
To the east. Yeah, anything you see in that light yellow,
The light
for the
yellow.
most part, anything that's outside of the thicker black boundary is unincorporated county.
Even along Fortville Pike there, the individual.
Like
Yeah,
individual.
so this here, for example, this is R 1.0 in Fortville. But this is unincorporated and this is unincorporated.
These kind of thing.
Correct.
So you commented or you made a comment about open space. What can, I guess I'm not clear on what open space means. That means it's a free for all, they can put anything in there?
So that's the comprehensive plan designation per the TIF district master plan. So the idea there from 2017 was really to have either a park and or retention area or a detention pond to serve the industrial, the light industrial park in that area, or to have something along the waterway here in this area.
So it's just up for grabs for whatever happens to be in there to assign a zoning to it. It is designated hopefully in the future for open space park, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that if you had, one option down the road, and we've talked about this over the years, is to do the whole district as planned unit development zoning. That would kind of match up with this TIF district master plan. It would have its own standards, everything. But the challenge is that we have a multitude of property owners. In fact, not all of it is technically within the town limits even today. Most of it is, but so since that time, people have bought, property has changed hands. And at least in this particular case, he developed the property under the existing zoning that was in place of R 3.5.
Okay. And there's nothing stopping the next owner to come before the council and get it rezoned back to R 3.5 or to, was it R 3.5? I mean, we could go the other direction at some point in the future.
Correct.
Okay, there's nothing stopping that.
Correct.
All right, let's see. Okay, I think that's all I have.
Any other questions for Adam at this time?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So it's my understanding that RR is less restrictive than the R 3.5. So even if somebody went back and the further, they'd actually be asking for more restrictive zoning, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I think my biggest concern is around the livestock themselves. Are there anything that prohibits certain livestock versus others, like a middle ground?
I don't think so. However, as part of a rezone, you have the opportunity to attach reasonable stipulations in terms of how that land is used. And the council is free to enact those as part of the ordinance, and most of the time they do, frankly. So for instance, what I would suggest in order to mitigate against some of those concerns of having a lot of livestock out there and having basically a big farm in the middle of town, if the petitioner is amenable to it, is saying maybe no more than 2 horses on the property. I think that'd probably be the best way, and that can be enshrined in the ordinance if you want to do it that way.
Who puts those restrictions on that? Is that, I mean, is what we're here for tonight just to give a favorable or non-favorable recommendation back to town council? Is it town council then that would put those restrictions or limits on it? Or is that us?
Well, it would be enacted by town council, but what we would do is if you had a condition or two that you wanted to add to this, then you could say, for instance, we a positive recommendation, but we think there should be a stipulation added to restricting number of horses or something to that degree. Then we can either use your exact language, or I can put something together based on that, and then we'll give it to council. Now, they also, lastly, the council does get the official certified recommendation that you make and sign. So they'll see that as well, which is required by law as well.
Sure.
And there was no remonstrance from adjoining neighbors, is that correct?
No, there
Okay.
was not.
And they've all been notified, they know what this is all about, and they didn't have a
Correct.
problem at this point.
Yeah,
Okay,
in fact, I did hear from one lady to the north. She had, she was talking to me about the potential for annexing. In fact, it's one of those pieces in
Oh.
this area. But she also asked me, she said, I got this flyer in the mail. What's this all about? And I explained, and she goes, oh, no, I don't have any issues with that,
okay.
one way or the other. So.
All right, any other questions?
I have no questions, just comments. All right. So I do have a concern about a downgrade, I guess if you would call it, to make it less dense of a zoning, correct? That's what it would be,
Correct.
right? And if you're looking at that map, it is right along what would become one of, if not the main north-south thoroughfare in town. Granted, it's not there yet, but that's the plan. And it'll be right there in the middle of a busy thoroughfare, and it's currently 3.5, right?
Correct.
And what he's wanting to do with this pole barn, that's allowed currently because the BZA is made that favorable recommendation. So that can happen without the change in zoning.
Correct.
All right. So what we're really talking about is the change in zoning to allow the animals then.
Correct.
Okay. So I do have a concern that it's been 3.5, and 3.5 is in alignment with what's going on through that corridor. If we change it down to RR, that's kind of spot zoning in my opinion. I understand what he's wanting to do. But it does, the 3.5 fits with what's already there. He's making what he is already has and what he's wanting to do with his pole barn work under the current zoning. So that's a concern I would have. And also there is a stream there that runs through to Old Bridge. Is there any concerns, or I would have a concern just initially, I'm no environmental scientist over here, about runoff from large animals, horses, anything else that might be in there? I know you said that it could be, made more restrictive if necessary, but any concerns with runoff, any feed, anything that would go along with those animals that would go to the stream, in the Old Bridge Pond and beyond, and ultimately into the park? I know probably with 2 horses, not likely, but any concerns, has that been given any thought?
At least from a staff perspective, it's a good point. I guess what I would add is that, presumably along that whole waterway out into unincorporated Hancock County, there's agricultural lands anyway that may have some pesticides as a runoff, that may have some horse waste potentially as runoff. So at least on that point, in my mind, it would probably come down to the intensity of it and how much in comparison with what's already going into the waterway now.
That was just a question I wanted to bring up. My main concern is the less dense and not the mismatch in the zoning around there. I think it fits currently with what it is, and it doesn't sound like it's going to restrict what he's wanting to do as far as pole barn and such. We're just talking about the animals at this point.
I mean,
That's all I
yeah.
had.
I have to agree. I mean, we're gonna get into spot zoning, and that is a major thoroughfare. It seems like going back within town limits isn't.
I mean,
So-
granted, some of the things that we had spoken about in the past with larger parcels of property, which this, I would think, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we had discussed in the past, things were at them 5 acres or greater, something like that, and that may have changed over time, but this isn't one of the kind of on the far-flung outskirts of town as it is now, or it will be at some point. It is right along what's going to be one of our main, if not the main north-south thoroughfare through town.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just add that it's part of the age-old debate of balancing current property rights and how a property might be used or leaning towards now versus what is in the community's best interest. And I think it's a good discussion to have, and where's the right line
Agreed.
but in balancing those two things.
So I think this is good conversation. I think let's allow the petitioner to come up and expand on
Sure.
his position, and let's see if maybe there are other factors, more context here, and we can really fill out this conversation. So with that, I'd like to open it up. I know, Clay, that you're on the line. If you'd
Yeah.
like to, your name, address, and we know how you represent the case, and spell out anything you'd like for us.
Yeah, how you doing? I'm Clay Marmion. I bought the property 2020. It's 9737 North Fortville Pike. I built the house going with the R 3.5, restrictions. I had to make changes to the house to fit within those standards. So, I definitely was abiding by the look and the appearance of, that area and going with that 3.5. The main reason, I mean, obviously, like it stated, is just for the option to have a horse or 2 horses. I have a young daughter. We've got plenty of land. We're not looking at changing anything with it. It was literally just for, the option and the ability to, have that possibility if we wanted to. We're not looking at having a lot of livestock or anything like that. It was literally just for the option of horses. And one other thing with going with the pollution, possibly with the stream, that stream just to the east of me in the county goes through 2 or 3 livestock fields that I know of where cows graze in that actual stream. So I wouldn't say that, just a couple horses would have any kind of, magnitude to that. But, that was the main thing with it. I've talked to the neighbors around me. They, had no issue with it. I'm right on the edge of county properties. There's a lot of farmland on actually all sides of me right now. So, that was literally the main goal here, was just to have the ability to have a horse or 2 if we wanted to. Like I said, I have a couple about to be 4-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. That was, literally the only thing we were looking at. Weren't trying to make any changes. Like I said, when I built the house, we actually had to go back and recustomize the blueprints to fit to that R.3 or 3.5 with moving a garage to the side of the house, certain trims on the house, percentage of facade on the front of certain materials and whatnot too. So, yeah, I mean, that was really just the main goal here.
All right, thank you very much. Since we do not have anybody in the audience, we're online. I think we can skip past the public response piece. Government officials, we also do not have anybody in the house. So
Libby's online.
Libby's, oh, I'm sorry. I did not see you, Libby. Any comment?
No, no, I'm just sitting here listening.
All right, wonderful. Thank you very much. Any questions for the petitioner?
No, but I got a follow-up for Adam, just a kind of a. If it was left at R 3.5 and we left the zoning alone, could we approach this with just a special exception for this homeowner for the life that he's on that property?
Potentially through the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Rather than
Um,
moving it completely to a different zoning, maybe we look
Yeah,
at a different
I would
direction.
say, without doing the research on it, conceivably that would be another option, would be he could leave the zoning alone and you seek a use variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals that would allow, horses, a horse or
And
whatever.
then we
that-
could put right, and then we could
Right.
attach a condition on it, a number of horses, whatever that number is, that limit and or type of animal. I mean, because I'm
Conceivably,
hearing
yes.
that there is some discussion and some concern from other board members. And I totally understand that. Okay,
And that would allow, because with the current use case, 1 or 2 horses maybe isn't a concern. But if the property sold, someone could substantially expand their livestock operation on the property conceivably, right? And so that's where we would lose control over potentially what happens on that property if it were to be.
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, the only thing I would offer is that if you could achieve the same, you could achieve something similar. It's just what bodies are approving it. So for instance, as part of the rezone, the plan commission weighs in, the council weighs in. For use variances, it's only the Board of Zoning Appeals. And it's really supposed to be, generally speaking, with use variances, it's supposed to be something that's particular to the property. And this may or may not classify for this case. But again, if you wanted to issue a condition as part of this, you certainly could. And that would run with the zoning in perpetuity
I have a question.
if you went that route.
Could we issue this conditional to his ownership of the property?
I'm
That-
thinking the same thing. That
Yeah.
if he would sell, would it automatically then revert back to 3.5? Or would we have to go back through a rezoning?
The zoning will run with the property.
Property.
Zoning runs with the
Yeah.
property. Okay, thank you.
So, but to go back to another avenue, and you touched on this earlier, on the discussion about chickens and whatnot. I think another avenue, I mean, rezoning is certainly one proper way, legal avenue to enable Mr. Marmion and his family to have horses on his property. The other is through the animal control ordinance, the animal ordinance, and then that's a town council petition, as was discussed. So that petition would go to the council, and then the council would consider the size of the applicant's lot, the nature of the neighborhood surrounding zoning, physical conditions, all the things that you're talking about tonight, the stream and the other, but it wouldn't be a rezone. It would be a specific request just about the horse or horses that Mr. Marmion could present to the town council and they could consider there. So that would certainly be a much narrower approach.
Which way would be the least administratively burdensome? The council path?
I mean, he has already
yes.
submitted public involvement, public hearing, all of that.
It goes the route of the council, it's just a council vote and it makes it so.
Well, the only thing, and I don't know the answer to this, it'd probably have to be a discussion with Alex, but that interplay between what the council's rules were relating to these farm animals before the zoning ordinance went into play. So we can either talk about it now or offline, but Alex, I don't know if the zoning prohibits farm animals and that went into effect in 2020, does it have the effect of hamstringing that Old Town Code provision that was their pre-zoning ordinance?
No, they're separate, and the zoning code does not trump the council's ordinance on, I think it would work actually the other way. That the town council's ordinance, prohibiting farm animals would, trump the zoning. So conceivably, again, I mean, I don't know that we need to get into the weeds of this tonight, but conceivably, the council, if the plan commission recommends approval of the rural residential and our zoning code allows for the farm animals there and the council approves the rezone to rural residential, I think inherently we could say that that acts as the council approving these, farm animals there. But just from, again, the legal side of things, the zoning code doesn't trump the noise ordinances or animal ordinances or other, provisions that the council has adopted. So there's that interplay there. But to the question of the least administrative, work, I would think it's the petition to the council for an exception under the animal control ordinance to allow a couple of horses at the property. That's something that doesn't have to run through the plan commission, then the town council, and public notice, to the extent that we have now, recording anything to the extent updating zoning maps and so forth. All those types of things are, as you all know, involved in rezoning. And none of that, or most of that, would not be the case for a petition for an exception under the animal ordinance.
And then what was the concern one last time with going the route of the BZA? You didn't think it would be tagged more for uses, it was more for,
I wouldn't say that there's a concern,
Okay.
One way or the other. The only, maybe nuance there is that it's the Board of Zoning Appeals that makes the decision.
right?
Um,
And then that could run with the owner, correct? Not the property.
correct.
But let me jump in. I think there, again, similar to the inconsistency of the zoning code and what's allowed under rural residential as opposed to R 3.5 and how that lines up with the ordinance that the council adopted specifically addressing horses. Horses are named in the animal ordinance, and there's a specific process for receiving relief from that ordinance, and that process is to go through the town council. I think the BZA path is I think it's either a rezone or town council.
I agree, Alex, you're right, because if they go to the BZA, they're still gonna have to go before the council.
That's right.
Right. That's right. Okay, that makes sense. So might as well just go straight to the council.
So it seems like the petition of the animal ordinance is the narrowest path to satisfy what Mr. Marmion is after. Does that sound like that would satisfy what you're looking for, Mr. Marmion, just out of curiosity? If we were able to petition the council for allowance of horses on the property instead of a full rezone to RR?
I mean, I think if that works, I was hoping to just do the rezone, just to have it all resolved, just since we've done all the mailers and paid for the publication and whatnot. Just like how, Adam would say it's more a rural estate. But I mean, that's up to you guys though.
One possibility, and I understand, I mean, Mr. Marmion's concerns about, he's paid for notice and gone through the paces. In the ordinance, I mean, there's a a notice requirement to property owners within 100 feet, certified or personal service. A lot of those are identical or close to the notice requirements that we've had for this hearing tonight. And so there might be the ability to, if the council was willing and Adam and staff, to consider some relief on those issues. I mean, I suppose the neighbors, I didn't see the notice. I don't know that having horses on the property was part of the notice. Typically, it's just we're seeking to rezone the property from R3.5 to rural residential, and the basis is not.
Actually, in this case, we did put horses on there. So if people were wondering why, what was causing this anyway,
Yeah.
just for background info.
I think my biggest concern is not necessarily the horses themselves. It's the future state of either changes his mind and decides he wants to try to shove a bunch of cows on the property. There are properties in the county that have multiple cows on 3 acres or less already, and they're county properties. I get that, but it is a thing. So I'm more concerned about a density of large livestock animals in the future state, whether it is with this property owner or a future property owner, which would be allowed via a broad rezone.
Could that be tacked on to the rezone, having some kind of clause on there that states that that couldn't be an option?
What,
Your thoughts, Alex?
I think we're searching for resolutions that are actually more complicated than just moving,
I agree.
getting
I agree.
relief from the council. I looked at it, and there's also, I mean, just to put a fine point on what's allowed under rural residential and this conflict with the animal ordinance. There's another provision that, it specifically says if you're zoned agricultural, then that does trump the at least with respect to horses. It calls that out specifically that you can, and if you're zoned ag, have horses there, so we wouldn't have that conflict. So as the lawyer in me, I keep coming back to, I think even if you rezoned and the council approved it, I can get comfortable that approval would in effect constitute approval under the animal controller. It's a little outside of that, but I think that my recommendation would be to encourage Mr. Marmion to seek the approval of the town council for relief under the animal ordinance, and then try to work with him on the expense of the time on the notice to the neighbors. And since we've really already done that, it's just a matter of getting an updated date to the neighbors to let them know that, hey, the council's going to take this up at their next meeting. And perhaps even in satisfying that at the public meeting tonight. Look, everybody got notice, and horses were specifically in there, and no one showed up tonight, and Adam hasn't got anything. And so if the commission were to recommend, and Mr. Marmion were willing to pursue that avenue, I think legally we are satisfying the spirit and the plain language of the exception provision to the animal ordinance, to say, let's get this on the agenda at the next council meeting, or whenever. But again, I don't get to vote. I don't get to decide anything, but I think that would be based on the conversation I've heard the commission have and some of the concerns and thoughts raised, and then also Mr. Marmion's, intent to have a couple of horses. Seems like that may get everybody there.
So if we were to go that route, we would need to, because we're providing a positive or negative recommendation on the rezone, would we then say as an additional condition, if we said negative recommendation on the rezone, however, how are we recommending that this be added to the next council meeting as an item for consideration?
We can send forward comments, right, with our recommendation.
Is that what, so we would say
Absolutely.
as a part of the negative recommendation, we recommend that this be considered
I
as,
would say that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I would say that we send forward our recommendation as is the duty of the body here. And then we also would like to submit our additional commentary or whatever you want to call it. Would that be acceptable, Alex? Our recommendation for the council to consider?
Yes, I believe you're allowed to pass this on to the council with no recommendation as well.
Correct.
And so I could envision a no recommendation with the additional commentary. And as part of that, you know, subject to perhaps the petitioner, Mr. Marmion, converting his rezone request to an exception, a request for an exception under the animal control ordinance to allow for a couple horses. And then also if, you know, the council is of a mind to go ahead and grant the rezone, you know, you'd recommend putting certain conditions or restrictions on that, or maybe kick it back to you, you know. I suppose that's one way too. We could continue this, you know, or table it, subject to the town council making a decision on a possible exception for horses at the property. So a few different ways to get there. I'm just trying to.
yep. As always, very much appreciated.
Yes.
All right, any other conversation, discussion, or questions at this time?
Just my comment that I would like, I don't want to go backwards in zoning, but I also appreciate and understand what Mr. Marmion wants to do. And I would like to see us somehow get him to what his end goal is without regressing on zoning.
I just wanted to say, I think it's a lovely idea what you're trying to do for your children.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I have a 3.5-year-old, so we may be over shortly as well. Okay, with that, I would look for a motion or is it a motion? I suppose it's a recommendation, favorable, negative, or no motion, or no recommendation, excuse me, for the rezone of 9737 from R 3.5 to residential rural.
Quick question, Alex. Would, as part of the motion, would our comments, if any, need to be part of the motion, or would that come after? My thoughts would be it'd come after as like an addendum, but what's your thoughts?
You could do it either way. I mean, it's depending on what motion is made. I mean, if the motion is to no recommendation on the rezone, but supporting of an exception to the animal control ordinance as granted by the council or something, that could be an motion, or you can do it after. I mean, again,
Okay.
lots of different ways to get there. That none
Got
is more or less really correct.
I'll make a motion for an unfavorable recommendation to the town council at this time.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion, commentary before we vote? Hearing none? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
All right, abstain? All right, recommendation, an unfavorable recommendation carries with a vote of 4-1. And at this point, we'll want to add commentary. Do we need to go ahead and state that on the record that,
Yeah, I think we need to come to some
Sure.
I think we had a couple of bullet points. We all sounded like we were in agreement to that we can
Yes.
have Adam send forward with our recommendation.
The thought
And I
is that-
think it sounds like we're all pretty much on the same page as
Yeah.
far as what that would be. So I'll leave that to you, Mr. President.
Ooh,
It's a round table here. So I believe that, we would be. Yeah, so an unfavorable recommendation on the rezone. But we would like to convert the request to an animal control ordinance. A variance to the animal control ordinance requested from the town council to allow for multiple horses on the property.
Right,
Is that correct?
right. We would advise him to seek approval through the council's, an exception to the council's
Exception.
animal control ordinance.
Okay.
That sounds better.
Yes.
and should we put in there any kind of relief of
I'll leave that to the council.
to the, you know.
And
where I'm
did we
going with
have
that.
any, I think there was discussion on, did you guys want to have any guidance, which again, it's completely the council's what it is they would want to do, but limitation to horses only and how many?
I would limit to 3 horses is my recommendation, and horses only.
I could go with that.
Commentary?
Yeah.
Yep.
And again, that's just
Horses.
purely our recommendation. They can do what the council can do what they wish, but yeah, I'm fine with that.
And I trust staff will work with Mr. Marmion to try and,
May I ask a question, Mr. Marmion, before we make that decision? Mr. Marmion, does 3 horses sound reasonable to you?
Yeah, I think that'd be fine.
The reason, just to explain my reasoning, is oftentimes when you get 1 and he has 2 children, you're going to get 2. When you get 2, sometimes
They have a baby.
they do have a baby, or one gets older, you often get a 3rd one.
Okay.
You stop at 3.
well, and theoretically, he could come back before the council and seek an increase in his exception, correct? He could he could
Correct.
make another request for 4 or 5, should
There's a
that
good-
arise.
There's a good chance the council will make him come back periodically to make sure that he's in compliance, I would imagine. They've done that in the past.
Okay.
And to clarify, Brittany, you meant 3 horses and no other livestock, right?
Correct. I think that if he ends up wanting to have a chicken coop or something like that, he's more than welcome to come back and ask the town council.
And we're okay, Alex, just an agreement by just concurring there. We don't need to take a vote. Perfect, yep.
And then staff will work with Mr. Marmion on trying to satisfy the posting needs and mitigating costs, since we've already done most of those steps to the best of our ability, correct? Correct, cool. All right. Well, any other board comments? That adjourns our new business for the evening.
I have a couple. I want to welcome Robert and, sorry, I've already all
Mike.
looked, and I'm like,
Mike Siebert.
to our council. Appreciate you guys being here and giving some new blood.
Yeah, absolutely. Echoing that, really great discussion tonight, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Marmion, for being on the call. I apologize if this is going to take a little longer than you anticipated, but definitely appreciate you walking through this with us. Thought we
Appreciate
really
it.
good- And appreciate you guys on the call. All right. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, looking for a motion to adjourn now.
I will make a motion to adjourn at 7:34.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Oh.